Welcome back. Turning now to the top issues facing voters, inflation and the cost of living. After months of rising prices, new data from the Labor Department suggests inflation may finally be showing signs of easing further. Consumer prices rose 3.3% last month compared to May of last year. On a monthly basis, prices were unchanged, breaking a near 2-year string of prices going up every month. It was welcome news on Wall Street and at the Federal Reserve, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled that the central bank could cut rates later this year.
We want to gain further confidence. Certainly, more good inflation readings will help with that. I'm not going to be specific about how many because, really it's going to be not just the inflation readings, it's going to be the totality of the data. We see today's report as progress and as, building confidence, but we don't see ourselves as having the confidence that would warrant, beginning to loosen policy at this time.
Inflation has gone up more than 19% during President Biden's time in office, while wages have risen just 16%. President Biden touted today's inflation report in a statement saying, quote, core inflation at its lowest level since April 2021. Grocery prices have fallen for 4 months in a row, and gas prices are below $3.50 on average across the country. Wages are rising faster than prices, and unemployment has remained at or below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans joins me now. So, Christine, thanks for being here. Here's part of the Fed statement from today. It said, quote, the committee does not expect it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. Now, inflation hasn't been 2% since early 2021. Why should we have any confidence that the Fed will cut interest rates at this year at all?
Well, in fact, at the beginning of this year, the going conventional wisdom was there would be 3 rate cuts potentially by the end of this year. And now the Fed is penciling in only 1, and that's not really guaranteed. I mean, the Fed chief was very, very clear. They need to see and be convinced that inflation is under control and going in the right direction. So they're really balancing here. It's a real balancing act for the Fed, and they're going to keep rates here higher for longer to make sure they've got it right on inflation.
Well, I also want to ask you about the long-term outlook here. When will we have a better sense of whether inflation is subsiding in the long term? Good afternoon.
I think they were pleasantly surprised. The Fed chief hinted that they were pleasantly surprised with today's inflation report. So that would suggest that would be more more ammunition that the Fed could start to cut rates maybe later this year. But there are a lot of uncertainties here. You cut rates when an economy needs a little bit of juice. You cut rates when things are flagging in an economy. And Yamiche, this is a really strong economy. Yesterday, the World Bank called it exceptional and significantly stronger than the rest of the world, sort of the dynamism of the American economy holding up the rest of the world. So there's that interesting moment where the overall economy is still really pretty good. And so the Fed doesn't want to be cutting interest rates into a strong economy because then that will make inflation come back.
It's interesting to hear you say the economy's doing really well, because I talk to voters all the time and they don't feel that way. They don't feel that way in their personal lives, because even with today's news, you have things like housing costs continuing to be a main driver of overall inflation. Things like medical care costs have risen at least slightly more than in May than they were in April. How are living costs impacting Americans here?
I think you make a very good point, and I've been traveling to swing states as well, talking to voters, and even voters who say, my economy is fine, I'm doing well, but I'm worried about the economy for the rest of the country. And the problem, I think inflation is a word that we've used so much the last couple of years. Affordability is the problem. They see that their home insurance rates are up, 20% over the past few years. If they're even getting homeowners insurance, some policies, smaller companies are dropping policies. Car insurance and car affordability has been a real problem over the past few years as well, and shelter. That is the part of the inflation story that's really been difficult to dislodge. A lot of very smart economists have said that they can see in the data that eventually these shelter costs will start to come down, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, hasn't happened yet, and affordability is the key word here.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Christine Romans.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.